Hey, it's Andrew, and in this video, we are going to try to fix an issue that we're having with the Terraform CLI installation, and another part of it is to tackle the Git pod YAML, so understand how this file works, and do some bash scripting. So we want to do a few things there. And in this one, I actually set up a code trap, and I'm just trying to introduce you to code traps sooner because throughout this bootcamp, I might lay some code traps. I'm not going to tell you that they are there. I'm going to tell you that they might be coming, or indicate to them. But for the most part, you're going to step on them, and you're going to have to deal with some troubleshooting. But this one, I'm going to just be upfront and show you where it is, and kind of an idea of like how small of a code trap I might lay on you in this bootcamp, so that you are trying to practice your own debugging skills. So what we're going to do is we are going to launch a new Git pod. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. And so, in this project, we have to have the Terraform CLI installed and the AWS CLI installed. And the way we're doing that is we are installing this on this machine. This machine is Debian, or I should say it's Ubuntu. If you're not sure what OS you're running, and which is really important, we should go find that out. I think it's like Arch OS, but like, how do we determine what Linux OS we are running? This project really should only be done on Linux. There's no reason to develop on Windows. And if you are using Windows, you should be using Windows Subsystem Linux, or just use cloud developer environments here so you don't have to natively develop on Windows. So there's a lot of different ways to determine what Linux version you're running on. It really depends on what you're utilizing, but you can pretty much Google anything and we can take a look at what it is. So maybe this command will be the one that helps us figure it out. I'm just pasting it in there, and it did. So, well, I mean, it told us some stuff. So here it says we are running Linux 6.1.4.4 generic x86-64. That's the architecture, but it's not telling us what flavor, what distribution. So let's find out, distribution. So we can go here and cat the etc OS release. And we'll try that. I'm going to just type in clear here. And it's not copy and pasting. Copy and pasting will be something you see me complain a lot about. It is very finicky when you're in a browser in VS Code. There it is, so we'll hit enter. And so we actually are running Ubuntu. I thought we were running Debian, but they're both similar. And so now we know what we're running on. It's important to know is because the Linux distribution can affect regular expressions. The formatting can be different. Some programs could have different flags. Lots of reasons. So, we are using Ubuntu, Debian. So for those who want to not use Gitpod, just use Ubuntu and things will be very similar for us. Or Debian, they're very similar together. Anyway, I said that we were going to focus on feature branches, and I opened up the main one. So that's not exactly what we wanted to do, but I just want to show you quickly here these two tabs. So I cleared it out, but when you first run these here, they will actually install and show you the installation instructions. If we go over to Terraform, you can see here it went and it attempted to install and it stopped here. And we have to hit enter. So it's not that it's broken, but if you were just launching this up, you'd have to go hit enter to finish the completion of this install, and that's no good. So that would have been the coding trap that I would put in for you, and that you'd have to debug or automate it. Otherwise, you'd be dealing with this through the entire project. But we're going to solve it. And we're going to solve it by doing a bit of an investigation. So the gitpod YAML file has these things called tasks. And within them, that is what is launching up these bash terminals here on the right-hand side. I know that they are bash. And we do actually have a few other options of different terminals. We have bash, ZSH, and fish. I think they're all derivatives of bash, but we are using bash. Okay, and so we're using bash commands in bash scripting in this bash terminal. Okay, and so these are the commands that I'm using. The question is, are they the correct commands? So before we start doing this, I just want to go and stop this workspace, and I want us to get in a good habit of doing feature branches. And we're going to, that's stopping, so I'm going to close that. And we're going to create a new issue. And, oh, yeah, so in the last video I wanted to say is that when you do a PR, they can automatically close these tickets. So I did not close this ticket. I think it was closed when we did the PR. We go down here. So yeah, when a branch gets merged in, I think that's when it closes. It's taking forever to load. I have no idea why. But while that's waiting, I'm going to open up a new issue. Okay, you can think all day there you want there, but and we'll just think about the name of what we want this feature to be. So we are implementing the Terraform CLI, and what I want to do is fix the Terraform CLI. So refactor Terraform CLI. Sometimes you'll have to work through a problem in the main before you decide that you need to create a branch. But we'll say there is an issue with the Terraform CLI. We need to issue with installing the Terraform CLI. We need to go and make sure it automates without intervention, without user input. Okay. And we'll go ahead and submit this ticket. I just also want to point out that we could also have labels, and this actually is a bug. You usually want to make your own, but I'm going to just mark that as bug. And the last one we could have marked as documentation, which is a great idea. So I'm going to go back to that other one. If it ever did open, we'll go into this one. Why won't it open? Come on, GitHub, it's a ticket. This should not be hard. Maybe we can just assign it a label from here. There we go. All right, it opened. But yeah, it looks like it, yeah. Merging a pull request may close this issue. Yeah, that's what happened. So that's great. We'll go back over here. So there's an issue with installing the Terraform CLI. We need to go and make sure it's automated. It automatically installs to completion without user input. And for those who don't know, I am dyslexic. I make spelling mistakes. I make grammar mistakes. You'll see me edit stuff multiple times. Try to do your best to make things human readable as possible because that is important. People will judge you on that. So we're going to go ahead and create a new branch down below here. I'm covering it. My head's in the way. You probably didn't see me do this last time. But anyway, over here, we can create a new branch right here. And now this one's called 3 Refactor Terraform CLI. It's interesting that's called 3. So we go over here, ticket 1. Where's the third ticket? Okay, whatever. We'll let it be third ticket. So we'll do that and we'll say checkout locally, create branch. And now what we can do is go over to our code and we'll drop down to this branch here. I have no idea why GitHub is so slow here today. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up in a new branch. Okay, I'll make my head a bit bigger now. And yeah, I'm going to probably end up covering the screen a little bit a few times, and I apologize for that well in advance. So this is going to launch up our environment. Gitpod is really snappy. And so, the first thing we want to do is take a look at this Gitpod YAML file because there's something wrong with it. And the first thing we should do is run it line by line to figure out where the problem is. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll just increase our font here a bit. I want to go ahead and run it line by line. So we'll copy the first line and we'll say allow and we'll hit enter. And again, I'll get out of the way. All right. What this is doing is it's installing some base level stuff for Linux and also curl here because we use curl in the next line, which is nice. Then we'll go ahead and paste in the next line. Apt key is deprecated or depreciated. I always forget how to pronounce that. Deprecated, I think. Manage key ring files in trusted G instead. So this might be our issue. I'm not sure. We'll go ahead and copy the next line. We'll paste that in. We'll hit enter. And it's this line where we're having the issue. So this is the line of issue. And this is apt add repository. A lot of times when you get this prompts, what you can do is just give it a -y. I don't know if that will work here. I'm just going to try it. And we'll paste that in here. There we go. So all we needed was a Y there. But notice down below here, key is stored in legacy trusted GPG keyring. It is deprecated. So it keeps telling me that, which could be an issue. And so, you know, because I'm seeing these deprecated warnings, I'm almost going, maybe my instructions might be old. So let's go and double check what we have for instructions for the Terraform CLI install. So we'll go over here, and yeah, it's going to be this one. If we scroll on down below, they have a nice video here. We'll go a little bit farther down, and it's going to give us, is this the page I'm looking for? Install Terraform here. Yeah, we do. It just looks a bit different when it's jumped up like this. So we have a few different ways to install it. The manual installation, where you're compiling it by source. That is way too hard. Homebrew, which could be easy. Some of you might be familiar with Homebrew and think, oh, let's just use the Homebrew. Gitpod actually does have Homebrew installed. We could do the Homebrew way of doing it. The only issue with using Homebrew is that sometimes the package that is on Homebrew is not up to date. This is a big issue with AWS CLI. It has to do with who updates the package. So you have to learn, you know, is this thing going to be an issue because it's not most up to date? For CLIs, I don't like using Homebrew for it. For installing Postgres, which you know, doesn't change as frequently and is different. Well, I mean, it updates a lot, but it's not something you swap in and out too often. I'm more comfortable installing Homebrew. Chocolatey is like the Homebrew for Windows, and then you have Linux, which is the way that we were installing it. And, you know, when you can, try to do it this way. And you'll see we have Ubuntu at the top. That's why we need to know our version. And so what we'll do is start copying these lines and see how they're different. Now, I said we want to learn a bit of bash scripting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new folder here called bin. And I'm going to make a new file here. And I'm going to call it install Terraform CLI. And the reason I'm doing that is I just want to copy the contents here. Okay. And paste that in here like that. And paste that in here like this. And we'll grab the next line. Sometimes you do have to read the instructions. I know it's very easy to get in the habit of just pasting it down below, but I've noticed, like, I can't remember, like, maybe it's Kubernetes or like it's the Google. I think it's Google Console is like they'll give you like a lot of options here, and so I'll come in here and I'll just like copy paste all the way down below, and then it won't work because apparently you had to read it, which is sometimes frustrating. But we'll go down the list here, and you can see this is a lot more than what I had. Right, the instructions I had were much easier than this. So, yeah, this is quite a bit more than what Gitpod here. We're going to split the window here. You'll notice 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are ways of like condensing the lines, but I think that there is a difference. You can see that we're doing something. It looks like something different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run these one by one and see what kind of output we get. So I'm going to just type in clear here, and we'll close this out of the way for a second. And we'll do this line by line. So this is the same. It doesn't have curl in there, which I'm not sure. I like curl, so I'm going to put curl in there. Curl, like they use the wget instead. So most machines on Linux will always have wget. They don't necessarily have curl. They serve basically the same purpose, but curl is a lot nicer. If you're on a Mac, you're probably used to using curl. And so that installed, no problems, no prompts here. Now notice here we have a backslash. When you have a multi-line command, you can use the backslash to break it up. Sometimes these don't paste well. So what I'll do is I will take out the backslashes like that. And then I will bring them back in once I know this thing is okay. Now notice we have a pipe in Bash. The way it works is that this is a command. It's going to have an output, and it's going to input it into the next command. So if we just ran this by itself, right, it's going to download this apparently key. And I'm not sure if I downloaded this as a file here because I really don't want to download it into the directory. But the idea is we want to take this content and send it to the next command. And then from that, it's going to go to the next command. And here what it's doing is just printing out or dumping it into a file here at this location. So we'll go ahead and copy that. And I'm going to paste it in, hit enter, going to get out of the way there. And we get some nonsense here. It's just because it's actually outputting that file. We could probably suppress that, but I don't know if that will mess things up, so I don't want to do that. But I'll go back and I'll put the lines back in here because I don't mind. Again, we could have just copied it this way and then pasted it like that. Okay. And then we'll do the next one. So this says no default keyring. So maybe this might fix our deprecated issue. Notice we are not seeing that deprecated issue anymore. We'll go ahead and copy that, paste and hit enter. We'll go ahead and copy this, and we'll paste enter. And that will install it. And even though it doesn't have it, I'm going to put a -y there. When you have apt-get install, you can always put a -y, especially when you're automating things. Notice that I put it over here, and then over here I put it on the end. Some commands are sensitive where you put the flags, others are not. For those installs, they are not. It's totally fine. So that installed again. And so that was a little bit smoother. Now, this is a lot larger than our previous installation. This is really nice because you can copy and paste this in one line. So what we can do is we can actually make this script executable. And so this is a bash script. We can name it .sh, like rename .sh, and make it a bash script, and then use the bash command down here to type in user bin bash and then give it the path. But what I'd rather do is to make this a more portable script, and so we'll make it executable. And we'll need to add a shebang. So let's talk about what a shebang is. So shebang is this. It's this character here. It's not pronounced shebang, it's shebang, like this. Why it's spelled this way, pronounced that way, I have no idea. But anyway, a shebang is used in the front of scripts to tell it what kind of file it is. So this, if you use the sh, it's a Bourne shell script. If it's bash, it's a bash script. If you use pwsh, it's a PowerShell script. You can see there is a difference. Bourne is not the same thing as bash, but they generally work together the same way. And you know, we'll actually go over to ChatGPT and ask what we should do, because there is some variation here of what we should do. And I might have been asking this the other day. I actually made all these videos and then I forgot to turn the audio on, so I had to re-record them. And so I was asking, what shebang should we use for Debian? And I said Debian because I didn't know we're using Ubuntu, but they're the same thing. So this will be generally the same thing, so it'll work. And so it's saying for Debian, you can use this, but if you really want to make it portable, you should do it this way. And that's the way we're going to do it the second way here. In my last bootcamp, that's not the way I did it. I used the more shorter form. Again, it's not a big deal, but this will be more portable with other systems. And so we'll have that at the top. So now we should be able to run this file. And you can type in source and do bin and install Terraform CLI, and it's running. So that's good. Now, I don't want to have to write source every time. Usually the way you run these scripts is you don't type source. You'll type in /bin install Terraform CLI. But notice that it's not autocomplete. If you're hearing me hit the keyboard, I'm trying to autocomplete. That's what tab does. That's something we should cover right now. So like tab is if we typed in B and I hit tab, notice it's autocompleting everything for B. If I do .bi, then it gets bin. So I'm trying to complete the name. We'll talk about that in a bit. But anyway, I want to go /bin install Terraform CLI. I have to type the whole thing out and saying permission denied. We're not allowed to execute that script. Why isn't that? We were able to do it with the source. Yes, source was able to pass it, and source has permissions to execute, but we're trying to make a file executable. So the thing with files is in order to make them executable, we need to change the Linux permissions on them. All files have Linux permissions. Let's go look that up. Just type in Linux permissions. And by the way, we might as well just copy some of the things we're learning here. I just don't want to lose them. So we'll go over to our README, and I'm just going to dump some links in here. I'll go down below here. So we're learning about shebang. We might want to grab this as a reference. I'll paste that in here. We'll try to be good and collect all these files. And what I want to do is make my way over to, well, we're looking at like how to check your Linux version or Linux type. I'm not sure if it's the same site. This one looks good too, so we'll grab that one. And we want to grab, we're gonna look up Linux permissions. So we'll type in Linux permissions. Always click the links when you're looking stuff up. Linux permissions, I'm gonna go Wikipedia. Okay, and actually I'm gonna go over to Chmod because that's really what we're going to be using. So the idea here is that files in Linux have permissions. I'm gonna get my head out of the way again. Nice and small here. And in our terminal here, I can type in ls to list out files. Okay, I can type in ls-a to list all files, including hidden files. Notice the period here. That means this file will be hidden. If you don't do the -a, it won't show it. in your Git pod, or sorry, your VS Code, it might not show you these unless you turn them on. But if you're in Git pod, you will see them. It's based on your configuration of your machine. But generally, when we're doing development, we want to see all the files. So for me, I will change that accordingly. But anyway, I'm going to type in ls-la. So L is for list, A is for hidden files, and now we can see everything. And we see this stuff here. This stuff indicates whether a file is readable, writable, or executable, and they're in the difference of 3 different scopes. And so if we look at our bin directory, which we can't see that file, let's go into that file. So I'm going to hit up again, and we are now going to type in /bin to list out the contents of that. We can see that this file, it has some read, it has some write, but it has no execution there. So let's go take a look and contextualize this. So over in Chmod here, if you go down below, there are 3 character groups, because we see these repeated 3 times, once, twice, and 3 times. And the leftmost one, so these 3 here, defines the user class, the file owner. Then the middle one means the group class, so users belonging to a group. And the third one is others class. These are users who are not owners of the file and who are not members of the group, have no permission to access the file. I'm going to tell you, I don't know what the heck all that means. I do, but in practical sense, I usually just care about the upmost left, which is the user, me, that's in the platform right now. And so we can change those permissions. And we want to add an X here on the last one. So how can we do that? I don't know what the D is. D's probably something, probably explains it somewhere in here. But I want to add the X, and so I can type in chmod. I'll bump up my font here so it's a bit easier to see. Chmod u plus X, and then I'm going to autocomplete the file install. I think we got to do bin install Terraform CLI. I'll type in clear. I'm going to hit up on my keyboard, up on my keyboard, up on my keyboard, hit enter again to run that last command, and now the X has been added. So this file is now executable. So how did that work? We did chmod u plus X. So the way it works is you have some letters down here, and so u means change the user plus add the mode X, make it writable. So that's what we did. We just added an X to the user group. Okay, and that made that file executable. So we can go here, and now I can type in bin install Terraform CLI, and it runs. Right? I don't have to type source. I don't have to provide the thing that needs to run it, the program to actually execute the code. And so that is how you make bash scripts. I make bash scripts all the time. You need to make bash scripts all the time. If you're on Windows, you'd make PowerShell scripts all the time. We're going to probably not do PowerShell at all because PowerShell is a bit of a nightmare, and PowerShell is not loaded onto this machine, so we're not going to do PowerShell. We'll type in clear here. PowerShell is not bad, but it's just for a different kind of workflow. So we have that script, but let's talk a little bit more about Linux permissions. So the thing is that you will have to know Linux permissions to some degree. We need to know it to make bash files executable. When you are logging into virtual machines, you have to download key pairs. This happens in AWS. This happens in Azure. AWS will not let you use that key unless you make it read-only. So what you'd have to do, just do ls-, we'll go back and hit up again. Let's say we needed to make this read-only, we would have to change that. Now there's another way to change permissions, and it's this number way. So if we want to make everything executable, we could type in chmod 777 bin, and no jokes about the 3 6s, okay? And so we do that, and now if we list out that contents, notice everything's being covered. If we want to get it back to normal, I think before it was 7 and then some number and some number. What is that? So that'd be 7 and 4 4. We could do it that way. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that when you use AWS, they will literally have a command, which is like 400 chmod on that script, and to get that read-only. So you'll see it in either way. You can do it either way you want. I prefer generally just adding an X to things, but you'll see me mix and match based on the use case, okay? So hopefully that is clear. But anyway, we have our script here. It ran, it installed, it's all good. And what I want to do is change out this gitpod YAML file here. So instead of this, we're going to take out these 4 lines. We're going to run a bash script. Now I'd love to just do this. Terraform CLI. I'd love to just do this, but I already know that's not going to work. It has an issue executing scripts that way. So in this one, we will have to put source in front of it. Another thing that I want to point out is that we are going to have an issue with this init. Gitpod has different workflows. Let's go over to Gitpod, Gitpod lifecycle. And I don't think it explains it in here, but if we go over to tasks, they used to have a graphic here. Yeah, here, there's 3 things. There's before, init, and command. And here's the thing is that if you start up your workspace, it will always run the init for a new workspace. If you are launching up an existing workspace that you shut down previously, it will not run init. This was a code trap in my previous bootcamp. Bootcampers did not read the documentation. I pointed them to the documentation, and it was the first code trap, and it went on for weeks, and I just refused to tell folks, and then eventually I gave them the answer. So this, all you have to do is either the before or possibly the command key, but we really should use before. So I'm going to bring this over into our documentation as well. And we'll go back over to here, and we'll drop this down below. Whoops. Sorry. Okay. And we'll have that as a reference. We'll flip this back. We'll change this to before. This will save so many problems. Okay. We'll do that. We'll save it. We are now in good shape here. And so this should execute. Now, the only way we're going to know is we're going to have to stop and shut down this environment again. We will have to make a commit message. And so we will go over here and we'll refresh. Now, I want to commit some documentation before we proceed. So we'll go back over here and we should write a bit more. So the first thing is install the Terraform CLI. And we're going to bring up what line is it here? Here, okay. And I'm just going to say install Terraform CLI. And if you think we're doing a lot of documentation, we aren't. In the real world, on the job, you're doing a lot of documentation because a lot of times you're handing this off to other folks. You're coming back later. You're not going to remember how to do it. You're going to see we're going to be doing a lot of documentation. In my intermediate boot camps, I do not do documentation with you. It's your job to do it yourself. But in this one, I'm going to do it with you. And you can see in real time, the effort that has to be put in here. So we're saying install the Terraform CLI. We're providing a reference. So we're just going to say, the Terraform CLI installation instructions have changed due to GPG keyring changes. We needed to, so the original Gitpod YAML task bash installation. So the Terraform, like what I'm trying to get across here is that if you run into issues, you need to document those because somebody else might come by and say, why didn't you use this over here? And why did you deviate? And so we're trying to explain the changes there. And the more we can provide structure around that, we can. So changes to the considerations with the Terraform CLI changes. The Terraform CLI installation instructions have changed due to GPG keyring changes. We needed to, I like to use the royal we a lot, but use whatever language you want. So we needed to refer to the latest install CLI instructions via Terraform and via Terraform documentation and change the scripting for install. Okay, another thing is refactoring into bash scripts. So the new to keep the while fixing the Terraform CLI GPG deprecation issues, and that's spelt wrong there. This is why you'll see a lot of spelling mistakes from me, is because I can't see them. I'm dyslexic. I don't have a spell checker in here, so I mean, I really should copy paste them out of here. But while fixing the Terraform CLI GPT deprecation issues, we created a new Terraform CLI bash script. While fixing the Terraform deprecation issues, we noticed the installation steps, the bash script steps, were a considerable amount more code. So we decided to place to create a bash script to install the Terraform CLI. And this will keep the Terraform, the Gitpod task file tidy. This will allow us an easier time to debug and execute manually Terraform CLI install. This will allow better portability for other projects that need to install Terraform CLI. So there's the reasons why. Okay, we might also want to reference some scripts. So we talk about the Gitpod task file. So we might say this here, saying .gitpod YAML, because someone might be doing this for the first time and have no idea what our project is. We can reference that file here by doing Gitpod YAML. Okay, we could even say about this bash script here. So say we notice, this bash script is located here. Here's not always a great great documentation word, but we'll do it anyway. And I'm going to go here. I'm going to say bin. It'll probably autocomplete if I do this. Bin. Let's see here. Bin. Install Terraform CLI. I'm not sure why it's not autocompleting here today. Oh, you know why? Because this one's the actual one here. Okay. There. I'm hitting tab to autocomplete. And so now we are going to hyperlink that. So we can go preview that, see if our information looks good. It's looking better. Considerations for Linux distribution. That's spelled wrong. I cannot spell that word to save my life. Paste that in here. We'll go down below and we'll say down here, we needed to check this project is built against Ubuntu. Please consider checking your Linux distribution to see if it requires any, and change accordingly to your distribution needs. Okay, that doesn't look spelled right either. And so we have a script here. How to check OS version in Linux. Okay. And we can go over to this command here. I think we can, if we hold control, we can actually click through on these. So I just held control on the keyboard. And I think that we might want to show this. Okay. So that showed this information here. I know it's a bit hard to see. We'll just zoom out a bit here. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this like this. Whoops. And we'll go back up over to here and we will paste that into here. And I'm doing the triple backticks like we talked about earlier in the course. And we'll do, so there's bash and there's shell. So there's actually a difference between bash and Bourne shell. But we can do triple backs and it'll be totally fine. Oh, this really is just trying to autocomplete for me. And it's not exactly, I guess, bash because there's a bash script, but whatever. This should be fine. So here I'm going to put the $sign so we know that's the command that's being ran. And then that's the output. So generally that should make sense. We could also just take it off like that. I think for this we'll take it off because it's not a bash script. So we might not want that highlighting there. And that's not the command that we ran. It actually is this. I think it just cut off there. So example of checking OS version. Okay. And then we'll just go double check this here. Make sure our formatting looks good. So that one is looking good. We'll go back over here. We'll scroll on down. Shebang. 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 Pronounced. Tells the bash script what interpreter program that will interpret the script. So we'll do that. And we'll go back over to ChatGPT because they had some good advice for us. Go all the way to the top here. All right, and so we say here, ChatGPT recommended we use this format for bash. For portability. Why? Why did they say? We'll search user's path for bash executable. For different OS distributions. Yes, I know I can't spell distribution. And I can't copy distribution either. Okay, copy this again. Paste. Distribution, there we go. I think that's what it said. Okay, and you know, the thing is, like, if we're gonna make the link the same, we can literally just paste it in there and it will hyperlink it. And so that's fine. Shebang considerations. And then we can write down here, when executing bash script, we can use the notation to execute, shorthand notation. Okay, and so there's that. Then we'll talk about Linux permissions here. This is shebang considerations. Oh yeah, we're still under scripts. Okay, Linux considerations. There's also a reason why we use the bin directory. That's like a standard way of doing stuff. I think it's described in Lammy project. Lammy. Just a moment. Sorry, someone hop into my room here. We'll go over to documentation here. I remember it being explained in this project. I know the fellow that made this project, so I remember they explained it. And I don't know where it is anymore, but I'm just telling you that that is a practice or standard. And so having a bin directory with all your scripts in there with no extensions is pretty common and normal. Linux permissions. We'll go up here, shebang considerations. When executing the bash script, we can, this would be more like execution considerations. Take that one, put that up there. E.g. bin install Terraform CLI. If we are using a script in gitpod YAML, we need to point the script to a program to interpret it, e.g. source bin install Terraform CLI. I know source works. We probably could point to bash. I'm not sure what's better practice, but we'll do that because we just need it working. We'll talk about Linux permissions. We need to make Linux permissions works as follows. I don't know. Like we'll just put here chmod u plus x bin install Terraform CLI. In order to make our bash scripts executable, we need to change Linux permissions for the file to be executable at the user level. At the user mode, I think they call them modes. Okay. SH here. We could also alternatively we can do this. We'll say 700, or sorry, it was 744, I think, 744. We'll double check that. We can click through here. I'm holding control to double check. We'll go over here. I'm looking for that number. That is 4. That is correct. Okay, great. So we have that. And the last thing is gitpod workspaces, execution considerations, shebang considerations. This is 3. This is refactoring into bash scripts. So I think we want 3. This is 4. This should be 4. This could be 4. This will be 3. GitHub lifecycle, e.g. init before command, or sorry, it's before init command. We need to be careful when using the init because it will not rerun if we restart an existing workspace. But in best practice, yeah, so that, that's just a consideration. So again, documentation is not just about taking stuff and rewording it. It's about making note of things that other people need to know. So this is the thing that's actually valuable, not like describing what it is, because they can go read it. They want to know where you had problems and how to work around those problems, right? So we'll try to uplift those the best we can. We'll go ahead here. We'll add all our stuff here. And we'll go ahead and commit this. So this will be refactor Terraform CLI into a bash script for gitpod YAML. We also need to tag this. So we'll put a 3 on that. I believe that is the number here. We have 3 here. And so we'll go ahead. It's okay about the limit. I don't care about it. I'm going to refresh this. Sometimes I don't trust it. Close that again. We'll hit commit. We'll sync the changes. So this should be going to the branch. We should be in our branch. Double check that. Good. And so now that we have that over there, we're going to go back over here. Make sure that we have our branch. It is there. We'll go over to pull requests. We're going to go make a new pull request. We're going to go and find our branch. We're going to bring it from here into there. We'll go ahead and create our pull request. And so, you have to type it every time. That's what I mean. There's a lot of documentation, all steps. So we refactored the Terraform CLI to be a bash script. which is executed in the git pod YAML file. Now we should really relaunch the environment to make sure it works. If it doesn't, we'll figure that out in the next video. I'm very confident that we did it correctly. We'll go ahead and create that pull request. There's only one commit, so there's nothing to squash. So we'll wait for that to happen. I'm gonna hit squash and merge. I'm gonna confirm that. And so that's now been pushed over there. What we'll do is go back over here. I'm going to do a git pull, git fetch. We will go check our control source here. And so our origin is up here. You can see it's merged in. I want to make sure that this is the one that has the tag. So I'm going to go git checkout main. Okay. Git pull, because I want to be up to date here. And I want to add that tag. So we made a, this is going to be 020. So we're going to go git tag 020. Git push. Well, we just want to tag it, so git push tags. We don't necessarily want to do push, we want to do tags. We'll do that. And so now we can refresh this here. We can see our tag is there. We're in good shape. I want you to stop the workspace, and I will see you in the next one, okay?